Thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to go ahead and start in a few minutes, but sit tight. We've got a great presentation scheduled for y'all. Hey everyone, thanks for joining again. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes for some more people to join, and then we'll get started. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We are currently in our 17th year of search engine marketing here at DFW SEM. So we've been around a long time. As a matter of fact, we are the oldest search engine marketing organization in the country. And this all wouldn't be possible without the help of a bunch of board members. We've got our treasurer, Chris O'Connor, our secretary, Jade Myers, our VP of Communications, Jenna Williams, our VP of Hospitality, Amal Haddad, our VP of Membership, Bart Peters, our VP of Sponsorship, Jordan Pearson, and our board member at large, Tim Shane. If you're interested in participating on the board or a committee, email us at info@dfwscm.org. But if you're too busy to join any of our committees, find us on social. Follow us, like our content, share our content, comment, retweet us. Let people know you are excited to attend DFW SEM events. And we're still having State of Search this year. It's going to be a hybrid event. We've got our virtual and in-person ticket prices, so make sure to get them now. We are actually confirming our first keynote speaker, which is going to be Greg Gifford. Greg is always a great speaker, so we want to make sure that you don't miss out on any of his insights. A big thank you to those who have renewed their membership. As a reminder, if you want to participate in a DFW SEM membership, we've got a couple of different options for you. I know a lot of people are taking advantage of our virtual membership tonight, which means that you get to rewatch this event free of charge, so you don't actually have to be here at 6:30. And if you're hiring, members get to post on our DFW SEM job board. So email us and we'd be happy to spread the word for you. As a reminder, we want to make sure that our content is accessible for everybody. So if you click the closed captioning button in the lower right-hand corner, you can also follow along with closed captioning. Our next meeting, I'm seeing the question, are we going to be in person ever again? The answer is yes. Our next meeting will be in person. The venue is still TBD, but we're going to have a social panel discussion. We've got people who are going to talk about TikTok, the emergence of audio as a social media trend, the impact that your employees can have on your social media presence in the good way. So make sure not to miss out on it. However, if you still want to stay home and stay in your pajama pants, we've still got that virtual option for y'all. And we want to know what you think. So make sure to fill out our meeting survey at dfwsem.org/virtual meeting survey. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Anil. I don't know if y'all have ever had issues with double screens, but that's what y'all are seeing right about now.
Want to make sure you can hear me okay?
Yes, Anil, we can hear you very well. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you, everybody. So today, my topic is Google Analytics versus Google Analytics 4. So I'm sure you guys have heard of what Google Analytics 4 is, or at least heard that there is a new version of Google Analytics called Google Analytics 4. So I am going to get deeper into Google Analytics 4, compare it with Google Analytics, and talk about how you can get up and running on Google Analytics. So that's what I will be talking about today. So I'm going to share my screen before I dive into Google Analytics. So let me know when you see my screen here. Okay. Okay, I've never used StreamYard here. I'm trying to figure out how to get this done. Maybe. Okay, here it is, slideshow. Let me know when you see my screen.
Okay, we can see it.
It's presentation mode, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So Google Analytics 4 is a new free version of Google Analytics that we will dive into. The tool is still in development, which means there are new features coming up every day, and the interface is likely to change over the next few quarters. That's what I heard from Google, but we'll talk about whatever is available. So before I dive in, you want to know like who is this guy and why you should be listening to me. So this is where I get to brag about myself a bit, and then we'll dive into Google Analytics 4. So about me, I've been in digital marketing and analytics for 20 years. Before even digital analytics was a known thing, I was working in this early days. I have a Bachelor of Technology or Engineering from Pantnagar, India, and master's in engineering from University of Tennessee, as well as MBA from University of Washington here in Seattle. So I'm in Seattle area, Redmond. I'm frequent speaker at various conferences, digital marketing and analytics, including some of search marketing, etc. as well. I've been on the board of Digital Analytics Association, which is the largest body around governing digital analytics. Before it was called Web Analytics Association, but now it's including all the digital channels. So they changed the name to Digital Analytics Association. Led digital marketing and analytics for various agencies and worked with several clients, which I'll show you in a minute. But started a web analytics consulting company back in 2007, sold it in 2008. And then since then, I worked for several agencies and startups. And now I'm focused entirely on building the education platform around digital marketing analytics. So solely focus on use of data to drive digital marketing. So that's the entire focus of the platform that I'm working on and I teach on. I have taught at University of British Columbia, University of Washington, Bellevue College, as well as I ran a program for Microsoft for several years, teaching them on how to use data to drive business decisions. So I was working with internal teams there and running their education, initiative there. 152 countries, 35,000 students who have taken my courses all across, and also do consulting on the side as well. So there is a consulting arm which helps organization use that data. So not only just train them, but we go and show how it's done. Some of the clients, Microsoft has been my largest client. I've been working with them since really 2005, I guess. Yes, so largest client, but I've worked with clients in various industries, helping them become more data-driven, mainly working with their marketing teams to use data to drive business decisions. All right, I'm not going to assume that everybody knows. Well, maybe, is there a way for me to know, like, are there people who do not know what Google Analytics is? Otherwise, I don't want to spend time on something that people already know.
Go ahead and comment in the chat if you are completely new to Google Analytics, but I think that we have a lot of people that are pretty experienced or have a base level understanding in the platform.
Okay, so I'm going to fly through this very quickly. If you see a comment, because I'm not able to see the comments here, I'm just looking at my screen. But if you do see a comment, just stop me right there and I'll spend more time. So what is Google Analytics? It's a website measurement tool, right? That's what it started. You measure how your website is performing. It allows you to measure and report on usage, as well as your online marketing performance. So really what it allows you to do is what are users interacting with, what are they doing on your site, and how your online marketing is performing. Now, Google Analytics 4 is actually going beyond online marketing. We'll touch on some of that. But the whole idea is not just to track. What I've seen is organizations will just keep tracking. That's all they do. Reports, I look at reports and I'm like, okay, what are you doing with these reports? But that's what they do. They take the data out, put it in some PowerPoint slides, maybe in Google Data Studio, and then report. But the whole idea is to improve customer experience and drive better outcomes for your digital marketing. You have to dive deeper into Google Analytics data to find that how your customers are behaving, what portions of your website are working, what marketing is working, And that can be only done by digging deeper into what's provided in the reports. So those who have used previous version of Google Analytics, they know there are several reports in there. And the whole idea is to go beyond those reports, not just look at those reports. So to track a site, you create Google Analytics account, you add a small piece of JavaScript code on each of your page, and then that code is the one that starts to track user behavior on your site. So Universal Analytics, which is the existing version of Google Analytics, or I don't know how you want to call it, previous version, existing version. Some people are calling it GA3 because there is a new version called GA4. However, GA3 is not an official term. It's Universal Analytics. The way it looks like is when you come in and create an account in Google Analytics, you'll see an account where you can have multiple accounts. So those who are doing search engine marketing or SEO or other types of marketing for various clients, you can set various accounts here. So each client of yours has an account. Then you have within those, you have properties. Properties are tied to, say, a domain name. So if your client has 5 domain names and they are all different kind of businesses, then you'll create 5 properties. But within those properties, you have views. Views allow you to drill down and look at a subset of your property. So if you have 5 properties, and let's say one of that property has a consumer-facing side of the business and the business side of the business, B2B, you want to see how they are combined, and maybe you also want to see how they're behaving differently. You can create a view that's only specific to that section or that subset of users. So that's how Google Analytics worked in or has worked in Universal Analytics. You place the code in the head section right after opening head section is where you place. Every time user comes in, this JavaScript gets executed. It sends the data over to Google Analytics server, and that's where the data gets processed and is provided in reports. You get this tracking code can detect a bunch of information such as browser, the language the browser is set in, the device, operating system, where the user is coming from, search engine, ad they clicked, social media, email marketing, etc. So they'll collect all that information. That's how you're able to see those reports in your Google Analytics reporting system. So all data after collection is compiled into reports. Use these reports to perform in-depth analysis. Those who are using it, they know that. Those who are not using it, this is a high-level view of how this works. And then this analysis leads to insights that you can use to test out new solution, improve customer experience, your marketing business, whatever you're trying to do. The whole purpose of Google Analytics report is to improve that customer experience, that marketing effort you're doing, not just to report for the sake of reporting. Now, Google Analytics 4 is the latest version of Google Analytics. We were talking about Universal Analytics. The fundamentals are still the same. You put the JavaScript, it starts to track, but the underlying data models and how the stuff works has changed. This version was previously known as App plus Web. So those who have been doing with web, this will look very familiar to you. They are now combining 2 versions, which was a website version, Universal Analytics, and there was an app plus web version, which allowed you to track your mobile apps. They're combining those, and it's called GA4, which can provide you a unified view of your customers. So user journey is not limited to one device. As users switch between devices, which is very common, I'm on my cell phone, then I go onto my desktop. I might use my wife's desktop, whatever. I'm using different devices. And in this case, so you don't want to fragment that reporting. You want to have a complete view as user goes from one device to another. So that's what GA4 allows you to do. It combines data from app, web, and as I mentioned earlier, also offline. So you can pass in offline data. So let's say if you have a store where you're doing a lot of transactions, you can even send that information into GA4. It's customer-centric instead of web or digital-centric. You're looking at how is this customer behaving, what's customer journey is. Data policies and collections have caused a lot of problems, right? So you're seeing problem for marketers, not for consumers. Regularity changes impact how data is collected. Browsers impact how the data gets collected. Users are also demanding more control. So looking at these, GA4 has actually uh, enabled pieces in there. So you can delete the data, you can disable some data collection, as well as you it has machine learning, which allows you to fill those gaps. So as a marketer, you want complete view. As a customer, you want more control. There are state regulations, there are browser regulations impacts. But as a marketer, you need the complete view. You don't need incomplete view. What Google has done is they are using machine learning to fill those gaps so that you can see complete view even when user has asked to delete that data. So wherever there are regulations, there are companies, organizations that will find a way to fill that gap void. So that's what is happening here. Machine learning is also core of this GA4. It helps you find insights. So if you go in GA4, you can type in a natural query language kind of question. Once that question is entered, it'll find you the insights. It combines data from app and website, works with or without cookies by using machine learning to fill the gap. So that's what is happening here. Other changes that you'll notice are in the admin panel. So those who have used the universal analytics, and as I showed you, there was an account, property, and view. Now there is no longer view in GA4. And I'll dive into GA4 so you don't have to think about like, okay, in view, imagine in your head, I'll just go in and dive in. I just want to make sure we're on the same page when we go there. So only accounts and properties, and then you have data streams. Data streams is how you send the data into these properties. Universal analytics data model was user. So user is somebody who comes to the site or app, and there were several hit types. Page view, when you loaded a page view was sent. Same way with in case of app, it was app and screen view. Then you can track certain actions on the website as events. So category, action, and label were the three things you can pass to identify those events. So such as page scrolling, watching a video, downloading a white paper, all those things can be tracked as events in universal analytics. There is also transaction, and e-commerce has its own hit type. So you can see which products people are viewing, how many transactions happened, etc. In GA4, the data model has changed. There are two main components in GA4, users and events. So no more different types of events you have to manage. And also the limitations of events having only three properties or three categorization things like a category, action, and label. Now you can have multiple. So you can have lots of event parameters. Similarly, you can enrich your users with lots of user properties. So you got two things that are happening. User comes to your website. As user is going or is interacting with your website, bunch of events get fired. Loads a page, an event gets fired, which is called page view. So there is no longer a page view page as it existed in universal analytics. It's all an event now. User scrolls down, that's an event. User clicks on a button, that's an event. Downloads a white paper, that's an event. Every few seconds, I think it's 10 milliseconds or 10 milliseconds, an event gets fired, which is called user engagement. I'm not sure but exactly the time that is, but every few milliseconds or so, an event gets fired. So no longer, a lot of people in SEO, SEM community have been using bounce rate. There is no more bounce rate in GA4. Instead, they have changed the definition to engagement. We'll see that in the reports there. So no more bounce rate. It's all about engagement. So you have to rethink on how that's done. I'm seeing a lot of people are complaining about that. I see in LinkedIn feed, people are complaining, hey, my bounce rate is gone. Where do I find this information? I think you have to start rethinking those things. What was bounce rate used for? When bounce rate existed, people are complaining about bounce rate. Like, hey, this does not do justice. This does not tell me XYZ. So Google switched it to engagement. In my opinion, engagement makes more sense than bounce rate ever did, because everybody was creating their own definitions. However, we'll go into that a bit later. But keep in mind, there are spiders and bots also that come in, and those could act as user. Most of the time, Google is actually now proactively taking care of removing them. User properties describe the user. So there are events you see that gets fired, but to get more information about user, as I said, GA4 is becoming more user-centric. So to define that user, there are user properties. They allow you to conduct deeper analysis. You can bring in offline data. You can bring in other data to enhance that user profile. So you'll know exactly who this user is. You can use all that information coupled with your event information to create advertising and retargeting lists. User properties, many are collected automatically. Like in the previous version also, Universal Analytics, you have user properties. Where you know what device user is using, what operating system, time zone, country, etc. Those are automatically collected. But you can also collect up to 25 additional properties based on whatever your needs are. So users have properties such as age, gender, interest, language, device, etc. These are collected by Google automatically. They know about the user because somewhere along the line they have given that information to Google, whether via their Gmail account or whatever Google account. And then as user is coming, then you have events, and events have parameters. So keep that in mind. That's the data model. You have users defined by user properties, name value pairs, and then you have events that are happening. These are the actions. Some are automatic, some are when the user takes action. Those are events. And events have event parameters. They are again name value pair. Some parameters are automatically captured, others you define. There are 4 types of events in Google Analytics. 4. Automatic, enhanced, recommended, and custom. So automatic is something that gets collected automatically. I'll go over that list in a few seconds here. Enhanced measurements are the things that previously required you to track them via Google Tag Manager or by on-page code. Now, some of those things are part of enhanced measurement collection. It's a flip of a switch with an interface where you can start to collect them. Recommended events are a list of events that are recommended based on your business model or your website's model. That list will continue to change because Google is adding more and more to that list. And then custom is, if none of these work for you, you can even define your own events, whatever name you want to call them. So let's take a look. Automatically captured events are language, page location, page referrer, page title, screen resolution. These are like automatic ones. Google already knows this information. It's capturing via that JavaScript or that page that's loading. So these are automatically collected. Then enhanced ones are page views, scrolls. So when a user scrolls 90%, then a scroll event gets captured. Outbound clicks. Earlier, you had to track them via Google Tag Manager. Now you can just track them automatically. You have site search. This is on-site search. A very powerful feature, like what are people searching for when they are on the site, not from when they're on Google. Video engagement, video start, progress, and complete file download. So all these things required, except for page view, they required some kind of tracking, but now they are automatically done as a part of just flipping a switch in the interface. Recommended events are categorized in buckets based on the objective of your site: retail, e-commerce, job, travel, and games. So you've got these events. They have a list of events on the site that you can use. And I'll share that if somebody wants it, it's on their site, and that list will continue to change. Then another big thing that has happened in Google Analytics 4 is Google Analytics 4 plus BigQuery integration. This is a big deal. The reason it's a big deal is in past, people had to use third-party plugins or third-party tools to extract the data and put it in BigQuery or databases. You can conduct much deeper analysis if you have this raw hit level data. But now, just going into the admin panel, you can send all your data into BigQuery, which is a data warehousing solution in Google Cloud. And by doing so, you can see exactly what's happening for every single hit that's happening. So I can go in and check every user, what they're doing. I can enhance that data with other stuff, other information, and conduct all sorts of analysis. And it's all free right now. Only thing is you'll have to pay for BigQuery, but BigQuery is also free up to a limit. So if you're a smaller website, it's all free and people should be using it. Google Analytics 4, it's just no third party required, few simple steps. So I'm going to go to GA4, but after this, I'll send this one out. But if you want to master digital analytics, then I'm going to give this code because I run this 25-day challenge where you can actually get started with these tools. GA4, Universal Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Data Studio, and BigQuery. So you can get started with all of these tools. And I'm going to provide this coupon. This is something I run every now and then, but the next one is starting on June 21st. Those who are already familiar and are using it, I have a complete course on this thing where I allow you to master digital and web analytics. I take you through this journey from aspirer all the way to becoming expert and leader. So you learn a bunch of stuff throughout the year with peers, with me, with industry experts, etc. So I'll send that information as well to you. Now I'm going to switch over to Google Analytics and then go directly into Google Analytics 4. I don't think I need to go into Universal Analytics because I've already covered what the differences are. All right, feel free to send me questions because I want to make sure you guys can hear me and everything is making sense. So I'm gonna share another screen now. Share screen, and I am going to go here and demo account. You guys can still see the screen, right? GA4?
We don't have the screen right now.
You don't?
Oh, you know what? It is my error.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, cool. So GA4 is right here. You're looking at the Google Merchandise Store demo account. This is the e-commerce site that Google has. It's publicly facing. And I might switch to other account if needed. But this is the one I'm going to show you right now. If you go to the admin panel, you'll notice there is no view. It's all property right here. To set up Google Analytics, I haven't looked into this account, but let's see. Done. I'm going to go to another account, switch over so I can show behind the scene here. Okay, let's try this one. So here you can look at, you have your accounts as accounts were previously in Universal Analytics, and then you have the property. Setup Assistant is here. If those who are still on Universal Analytics, you'll notice something where it says, hey, upgrade to GA4. And if you have seen that, don't be alarmed by, hey, should I click or not click? If you're wondering that, don't be alarmed by it. It's not actually going to take your Universal Analytics account and upgrade it. What it's going to do is it's going to create another property for you. So you'll still have your old property running as is, and it'll also create a new property that you can start to use. So once you do that setup, it's going to give you this one. If you don't have that setup, let's say if this is a Universal Analytics one, you'll see this GA4 Setup Assistant. You can go through this Setup Assistant to upgrade this to GA4. And once you do that, which is now your GA4 properties created, you'll notice the GA4 properties are without UA in front. So this is a universal analytics property. This is a GA4 property without any universal analytics in front of it. Click on it. And this is where you can see all your property settings, what this property is about, and you can capture this property ID, which you will have to use if you're using Google Tag Manager. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Google Tag Manager or not, but that Google Tag Manager is a product that allows you to easily implement Google Analytics on your site. Not only Google Analytics, but other pixels as well. So it's a tag management solution or pixel management solution. So you can put all your code in that tag manager. It's a container. It's a JavaScript container that sits on your page. What it does, it allows you to decouple your website from the tags that you will be putting. If those who are not using Google Tag Manager, I highly recommend that you look into Google Tag Manager and move over to it. Otherwise, creating all these tags on the pages is very, very difficult. Your tracking will actually be much faster, much easier, much better if you use Tag Manager. So, where did I click on here? Yeah, data streams is where you'll see where this data is coming from. So data streams are the way for you to send data into Google Analytics 4. Clicking on this data stream will show you the properties of that. Remember when I mentioned enhanced e-commerce? What's happening? Enhanced events. These are enhanced measurement events. There are 6 of those. So if you click here, you can see page views, scrolls, outbound clicks, site search, video engagement, and file download are automatically now going to be tracked. This is the switch I'm talking about. Once you untoggle it, then these will go away. You can also find specific ones from here. So let's say if I don't want to track scrolls, I can just simply switch this flip this switch. And then you have site search, where clicking on advanced search will show you the query parameter within your site that contains that keyword. And similarly, you have file downloads, video engagement, etc. So with that information, now your tracking is done. If you need ever a code, then you can you can get the code right here on page, or you using existing on-page code, you can grab all of them right here. It shows you information where to get these tags. There are more tag settings that you can look at. Those who are familiar previously with GA, you know that you can configure internal traffic and external traffic, so you can separate them out. You can do that in this place. All right, now I'm going to go to interface, unless somebody has more admin questions, because I can spend the whole time in the admin panel to walk you through. But just wanted to show you where all these settings are in case you want to toggle any of these off.
Yeah,
now,
so Craig actually has a question in the chat. He says, how does machine learning take the place of cookies, and how can it mitigate the effects of Apple's privacy changes?
Yeah, so great question. Bunch of this stuff is still being defined, but machine learning, what it does is it looks at users' behavior. And there have been studies done which tell you like how exactly. So if I'm using this computer and my wife uses the same computer, Google can actually tell it's a different user. They have so much data on the behavior, on how that happens. I might spend 3 pages I'm looking at, I conduct certain type of searches, my wife conducts certain type of searches, or she visits certain type of website and I visit certain type of websites, and the time I view them on and how much time I spend. They have all this information that's being collected. They can stitch that using machine learning. They can figure out it's the same person. Even though there is cookie doesn't exist, I can tell you based on this behavior, it's the same person. That's how they're using machine learning, because it has lots of data about that user. So even if privacy says, hey, no cookie, you can't drop a cookie, no problem. Somewhere you'll go in Google, you'll sign up at some point, you'll provide some information, you'll do certain things, and immediately Google can then start to figure out it's the same user. There was actually I don't know which study was done, but they said they have these studies were 70% plus accurate in predicting it or in finding out that it's the same user. That's how they're using machine learning. So they are looking at bunch of data points to figure out who this user is. We used to, when I first started in analytics, we were using the browser. So each browser has a unique fingerprint. So we couldn't find out who this particular user is, but we could find out this particular machine. And since then, the technology has become much more sophisticated. Each browser, even if I'm using browser, Chrome on Windows, and you might be using Chrome on Windows, our footprint is very, very different. The history that we have in there, the extensions that we have in there, when we open the site, when we open those browsers, there are a bunch of stuff. It's very, very unique. They can figure out by that, like who this user is not the same user who was doing the activity previously. So they have those with the browsers, but now, using the same machine, etc., they can use machine learning. So no matter how much, companies will figure out a way, certain things they'll be removed for a while, but then technology will evolve where they'll figure that out. Okay, any other questions? So let me go here. Now, the way people who have looked at universal analytics, you'll notice the left navigation bar is much more streamlined now. Earlier, there was audience, you had behavior of those audience, the acquisition, where they are coming from, and then there was e-commerce as well as conversions. Now they have changed these to match the life cycle. Acquisition, how are we acquiring the users? How are they behaving? How engaged they are. Remember, they replaced bounce rate with the engagement. So all about engagement is here. Then monetization. How much money are we making? It's not just e-commerce, but other sources of making money are included in here as well. And then how good is the site in retaining those customers? So you acquire, you get them engaged, you make some money. Are you bringing them back and making more money from them or not? That's the whole customer life cycle in here. Then you have user demographic and technology, which is very similar to universal analytics, how it was there under audience. Those who are not using audience, this is one of the things that I always tell people to look at. Universal analytics has tons of rich data about users' preferences in market segment. What are they in the market for? Very, very useful for you to figure out where to position your site, how to position your website, marketing messages, etc. So you can find that here. Then underneath that is your conversion event, and then all of the events that are happening on the site. So if you have a list of events that are happening, let me switch it over to another one here, another property. Let's see if I can do this one. Yeah. So you have lots of events that are happening here. Click event, file downloads. Like I showed you, these things happen automatically. File download, first visit. So every time a user comes to your site for the very first time, in previous universal analytics, there was a cookie drop. That cookie marked the user as new user. Now there is an event that is called first visit event. Session start is also an event. So when the user starts to engage, as soon as they land, session starts, and then page view happens, scroll happens, etc. So I'm going to go here to show you a bunch of reports. You have users in last 30 minutes. You'll also notice one thing, which is not in this one, but when you go into engagement, so I mentioned these events. Events are happening and you can pass in event parameters. Those event parameters can be passed via Google Tag Manager. However, by default, those event parameters only show up in real-time reports. So when you go here, you'll see a list of event counts right here. These kind of reports, it will show up. But then they are gone. You can't see much information about these events beyond certain reports, which are a small portion of reports. In order to see all your event parameters, and this is something, if you go, those who are going to go deeper into GA4, which you should be, Focus on Analysis Hub. This is where the magic happens. All these canned reports are good to look at. So you can look at, like, campaign and what their parameters are, but they will be gone because this is only in last 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, whoever that user is, that's gone. You won't be able to find it in any other report. So that is one of the biggest things that I've seen people complain about. Hey, I can't see it beyond this time frame. What the way Google has organized it, not sure where they're heading with this, but everything is in Analysis Hub. Analysis Hub is for analysis, so you can create your own analysis for any event parameters that you want. This is where you can define the segments that you want to look at, the dimension, which is your event name or event parameters, metrics, and then you can drag and drop and create those reports. So if I want to look at particular events, I can drag right here. I can drag on a column, or I can drag it on a report. So if I drag it on a report, rows, it's going to create that report for me. And it'll show all the event names and then what's happening with those events. I'm not sure why it's taking so long. Yeah, so event names are showing up here. You can see how many active users are for those events. You can pass in other metrics if you want. I can do event count, and I can put it in, where did it go? Not here. Event values. Right here. Then I can see event counts. And if I want to add and look at the other data, I can simply click on dimension and pick a bunch of dimensions from here. So all your event properties, etc., will show up here, like user properties showing up here in this place. So you can pick a bunch of events, bunch of dimensions and metrics, they'll start to show up here, and then your report will be created here. Those event properties by default won't show up in this list. They won't show up in this list. What you have to do for that is go into your custom definitions and then create a custom definition for any event parameter that you want to use. So if I want to use a campaign parameter as in my report, I'll create that dimension and call it campaign name, and then save it. Then it'll start to show up after a while in my report, in my Analysis Hub. Then I can use campaign name in my reports. So I'm going over this quickly because we have limited time. I'll be happy to stop and explain some things. Anything specific you want me to talk about, then let me know. So that's how you get. But spend time on Analysis Hub. This is going to be your friend. If the more you know about this, the better you'll have control over your data. There are certain templates that you can use as well. So you can pick one of these templates to see how your how your data is performing. All right. So acquisition report simply shows you how you're acquiring the users, which sources they are coming from. You have your source session medium, campaign, etc. So you can see where your users are coming from. You have user acquisition and traffic acquisition in this. User acquisition is when you acquire a user. First time a person comes to your site. Traffic acquisition, on the other hand, is when the user has already been acquired. That means they have already been to your site. Now they're coming back again. So that is a traffic session acquisition, sort of. Think about that. So you can see all your places where user is coming from. And then you don't have bounce rates anymore, but you have engaged session, engagement rate, etc. And if you hover over this, engagement is right here, engaged session. Yeah, it's 10 seconds actually, not 10 milliseconds. The number of sessions that lasted longer than 10 seconds or had a conversion event or had 2 or more screen views. So what was bounce rate? Bounce rate was somebody came, even if they spent 20 minutes on your page and they left without going to another page, that was counted as a bounce. So if you have a blog posts are long, right? A user spends time looking at that. Or if you had a video and you never track that video engagement, User came, played the video, and left. It was counted as a bounce in previous version, which is not right because user actually did engage. This GA4 takes care of that because every few seconds it's sending a hit. And if user spends more than 10 seconds on a page, then it's considered engaged visit. If user comes and downloads a white paper without doing anything else, that's a conversion event for you. If you track it as such, then it's an engaged visit. So in my opinion, this is the right definition, or it's a better definition than what it was with the bounce rate. So you got engaged session, engagement rate, engaged sessions per user, average engagement time, how much time they're spending, and then you can look at event counts and conversion, etc. So this is a big change in new GA. Similarly, here you got how you're acquiring the traffic, where they are coming from. So you can see, similarly, you have engaged session. So look at that definition of engaged session because that'll make things clear. Few things that'll make it very clear are no more bounce rate, it's engagement. Certain events are automatically tracked, and it's all about users and events. And hence, anything you want to learn about your site, you just pass it as an event and parameter, you're good. You can collect tons and tons of information about what's happening on your website. So event takes the place of goals. You could define your own events for a specific goal. Yes, it's basically events are the goal. So if you go in here, conversion, and you have this, let me see if I can find the new conversion event, Anil test. Why is it this? Oh, because there is a gap in here. Okay, so now Anil test is an event that I created. This event is not collecting any data at this point. I just named it. If in using Google Tag Manager, I can pass certain activity. I can say, hey, if somebody views more than 3 pages, then set it as Anil test. That event happened. So let's say if that's the kind of activity, I set it up in Google Tag Manager. Every time the 3rd page is viewed, it sends a hit or an event called Anil test. Once it starts to come, I can go ahead and call it a conversion event or not. I can decide whether I want to call it conversion event or not by flipping this switch. So that is your goal. That's how you define. There is no other way to do it. You just collect events and then you define which events you're going to mark as goals or conversion events.
So, and we have a couple other questions coming in.
Yeah.
Carl's asking, does the website have to be updated to report to Google Analytics 4, or does the current Universal Analytics code report simultaneously to both Universal and GA4?
Yes, great question, Carl. Depends on how you have implemented Google Analytics, Universal Analytics. You can use, as you go through the upgrade process, it gives you the steps. If you're using Google Tag Manager, you can continue to use that code. You'll have to just tag another event in Google Tag Manager. So you'll have to set those, and it'll start to send the data to both of them. If you're using on-page tagging, then if you have G tag, it can work. There is a, you'll go through the process and you can see how it's done. But yeah, it depends on how it is implemented. And you can track both simultaneously, Universal Analytics and GA4. And I highly recommend that you do that. Do not just completely move to GA4. Do not get rid of Universal Analytics. Track both of them simultaneously so you can learn what the differences are. If you're using it for clients or internally for yourself, whatever the scenario is, you need to be comfortable because you're not going to get the same level of reporting or same type of reporting as you were getting in Universal Analytics.
So along those lines, Dean has a question. What changes are made with conversions? So I know for me personally, I like to report on conversion rate, and I've always thought that that was based off of my landing pages, but it doesn't sound like I have necessarily that same metric.
You can do the same thing. So let's say you have a thank you page. That's your conversion, right? And that thank you page, The challenge with thank you pages is, can users get to thank you page without you actually, without going through a form submission? If that happens, then there is a problem. Because a lot of time people will bookmark thank you page if it contains your order ID or something, and they'll come back. I've seen where number of thank you pages events exceed sometimes the total number of form fill that started. But that happens. Anyway, let's assume thank you page can only be accessed once you go through the form. You can do that here. You can create an event. So I'm going to go and show you right here are all the events. Two ways of tracking events. One is you can set in Google Tag Manager. I'm not sure if you're using Google Tag Manager or familiar with it. Again, if you're not, I highly recommend. And I'm not saying take the stuff that I'm doing a 21-day challenge to teach you, but you can learn it on Google's site, what Google Tag Manager is and how to use it. In Google Tag Manager, you can set if this page fires, then send this event. So it'll send that event over to Google Analytics, right? Whenever that page loads, that event will start to show up here. You can then use that event as a conversion event. So let's say if somebody is viewing a particular page, in this case, I don't have it. Let's say video start is my conversion, right? So I do that. It's now a conversion event. So once that event shows up on your Google Analytics, you can set it up as a conversion event. And then you can look at what percentage of conversions are happening. Another way to do is you can even create an event right here. So let's say you don't want to use Google Tag Manager. You can go in here and call it thank you. I'm going to call it thank you page. Thank you. No space. And then event name, or I want to call it, there is a page URL or page title, I think. Yeah, you can do it by page title. So there are a bunch of properties you can use to define how you want to do that. So let's say, I think there is no URL here. You can say page title contains thank you. That's it. And once you do that, now your event is created and make your event as conversion. Why is it saying that? But that's how you can create events here as well. Where did it go? Oh, it's not collecting any data because there is no thank you. So once it starts to collect the data, you will start to see that event in this list. So one is you go into Google Tag Manager, you set your criteria, and every time somebody goes to thank you page, you'll start that it'll Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics will send a hit or event, and it'll start to show up here. You can, if you don't want to use Google Tag Manager, you can create those events here, but the thank you page has to live on your site. And when somebody visits that page, it sends a page view event to Google. Google evaluates it and says, hey, I need to mark this as an event. And that's when it'll start to show up here. Does it make sense?
That makes great sense. So we have another question coming in. This is such great content, Anil. We have another question coming in that's asking about the integration with Google Ads. So for example, if you use Google Analytics goals as Google Ads conversion events, are there any special changes needed to leverage GA4?
You're using Universal Analytics goals as Google Ad conversion events. Yeah, so goals are, I think in Google Ads, the goals are tracked by an ID. So you will have to, great question. I haven't looked into that, but I should, Carl. Should get back to you on this one. Let me verify it because I know somebody else has recently reported they had some issues with this. But let's connect and I'll get you the answer on that. You will likely have to do any special changes to leverage GA4. Yeah, you'll have to likely do those events here, but we can figure that out. Cool. All right. Any other questions? So keep sending your questions. We still have a few minutes, right? Or we're at time? I mean, I can keep going. If you...
Yes. We're good until about 8 p.m.
All right. So I'll keep going. There are a bunch of other stuff I flew through this one, but I'm going to go through report one by one. and then stop where we need to stop, or where I feel like it's a natural stopping point now. So engagement, we looked at acquisition metrics. This is engagement over time. You can see those, how users are engaging. And then you'll also notice these events. Again, like I said, you can take a look at this event. So page view event happened, and when you click on that page view event, it gives you details about the page views, what are happening. So in this event happened in last 30 minutes, which campaigns they came from, user engagement by different pages on the site, etc. So pages and screen, this is your regular pages report, what pages users are looking at. So you can see those new users. Again, everything is engagement time rather than just like, bounce rate. What's the engagement time on this? Monetization, there's likely not information in here. So I'm going to go switch over to demo account. And those who haven't looked at, this is a Google's demo account, which everybody has access to. If you just want to look at, you can look at this stuff. So you got total revenue, how much is coming from e-commerce. Their whole site is e-commerce, so you're seeing that. But you can also have total ad revenue. You can pass that information as well. Then which items people are purchasing, what's the average revenue per item, etc. is right here. Then on-site promos, or the coupons. So this is something very valuable, what coupons people are using if you are doing a lot of promotions. E-commerce purchases, how they are trending, what products people are buying, and what's your add to cart, cart to view, etc. rates. Then you have retention. Retention is all about bringing customers back, right? So they're going very app centric view, which is, hey, we got the customer to download the app, they looked at they engaged with the app, but are they coming back and using it or not? Same thing is happening with websites. Organizations have been trying to do retention metrics for a long time. Now they have put that in Google Analytics. So how many returning are coming, and this is an important one, which tells you by acquisition date, people who were acquired on that Sunday, how they behaved after 7 days, did they come back or not? So you can look at those cohort analysis to see how you're doing this. If you did a major marketing campaign, let's say you did a paid search campaign, or you made major SEO changes, whatever you did, and you started finding people are now coming, but are they sticking around? Have those changes not only have a short-term impact, but is there a long-term impact? Then you have demographic information, where they are coming from, what cities, etc. Demographic details. These are very similar to what was in Universal Analytics. It's based on the sample data on users, not your data, but sample data that Google has. So not every user that comes to your site is going to be included in this report. Then technology they're using, browsers, etc. Tech details. And this was all available in the previous version as well. We flew through conversions. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a question here. Seems like these are all good changes. Do you see anything in GA4 that is troublesome or that you don't like?
Yeah, so troublesome or you don't like. I actually like it. Now, I'm not the voice of the whole industry. I see many people who have been so used, and I actually were going back and forth on LinkedIn discussions where I said I love it. Many people were like, I don't love it. That's fine. Because they, like I said, they are looking for bounce rate, they're looking for canned reports, they're not there. Right? If you look at in old GA, there are several more reports than are here. Definitely the product has some gaps. They are still developing some of the things. Some features are missing, like even when you do analysis hub, today somebody was talking, they want to do path analysis and to see how users are going through and doing certain events, and they want to look at some specific events. They are not able to do it. I haven't looked into that. That came up in my earlier meeting. So I'm going to look at it tomorrow to see what was happening there. But certain things Google is still releasing. I like it. If you are used to old canned reports, you won't like it. If you are not used to those and you want to explore the data further, then you'll like this. Particularly two things that I really like. One, I already mentioned, like, engagement. I think people are coming up with their own definitions. Now it's there. The other thing is this analysis hub. This is very powerful. You can spend literally days looking at data from different point of view. I just touched on it very briefly. If you look at, I'm going to spend some more time here. If you look at, is this mine experimentation or yours? Oh, it's mine. Okay. I was like, who's is popping up this? Okay. If you look at here, you have segments. Now, creating segments is kind of tricky in here, but you can create with an interface, and I can show you that. But you can look at any segment. Segmented analysis is the way to go. You can't assume everybody's behaving the same way. There are some canned segments, but you can create segments here as well. So you can click in here and create bunch of different segment. You can create segment based on event. So hey, if I want to look at give me a segment of all those people who have viewed 3 or more pages and have downloaded a white paper and came from Google, I can do that. And by doing that, I will know, hey, people view 3 pages, they download white paper, and I can look at their monetary value. There's a bunch of stuff I can do. This is what the powerful thing is. So once you do those segments, you can drop them here. You have dimensions. As I showed you, lots of dimensions available here. Tons of them. You expand these, you can slice the data by various ways. Traffic sources, Google session, user medium, user properties. Then you have user lifetime values. You have a bunch of stuff here. And then you have metrics. Tons of metrics available as well. So I'm going to cancel this one. Yeah. So how many event counts? How many, was it a first visit? Was it a first open of an app, etc.? 1 day repeat purchase or 7 days. So there is a lot more than was available in the previous version. Similarly, I only touched on one view, but you can have different visualization right here within that for your data if it's available. So you can do that analysis. And I only touched on one exploration technique. There are a bunch more: cohort analysis, funnel analysis, segment overlap, path analysis, and user. You can even look at each and individual user on your site, how they are behaving. So if you go here and I go into audience, I think it's an audience. I'm trying to figure out. No, not audience. Let's go here. And I'm going to go here. Use a lifetime. Not this one. Hold on. Where did it go? Custom definition audience. All right, where did it go? I was just looking at it and I completely missed it. But you can look at each and every user that's coming to your site. Let me see if this. No. See, that's one of the things that it's kind of getting used to it unless you use it every day, because a lot of clients are still not using it. So we're still not using it at that level, but there is a view that you can look at. Nope. Android users. No, user explorer. Let's see if I. I'll see if I remember where it is. But yeah, you can look at each individual user. I don't want to spend time. I just looked at it and I was like, okay, where is that? But yeah, you can. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we actually have 2 more questions or 3 more questions that came through. So the first one is, if there's a new website that's about 6 months old and GA4 was just set up this week, how long does it take to show the information?
It'll start to show up immediately.
Okay,
so
great.
As soon as you put the GA4 code on it, it'll start to show up. So
Okay.
maybe there might be a lag of few hours, I think, for the news site, maybe, but it starts to collect the data immediately and you can see it immediately.
So my next question that came in was about segments. Are they used like personas,
Oh,
for
I'm looking at
example,
a
like in
different.
Sitecore?
Sorry, I missed that because I was looking at Google Demo Store and I don't have full access to it because it's Google's. So let me go back to my account here, then I will be able to see here. And you can repeat that question in a minute. Let me just go here first. Yeah. Okay, create custom definition. Yeah, we did that. Audience, new audience, custom audience. Nope. Okay, go ahead. I'll find it. I'm sure
Okay.
it's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
So
Your question.
Dean
Sorry.
is asking segments. Are they like personas that are used in Sitecore?
You can, no, they're not personas. So segments, personas are more than just behavior, right? This is behavioral stuff. You can put some more data into it. So let's say you do have user information that you can put, but I'm not familiar with how Sitecore personas work, but personas are more than just what user is doing. Personas are who is this person, what do they like, what do they dislike, etc. Right? You're creating this lifelike model of visitor. That's not what it is. Segments do help with personas. So that's the way to look at it. It's purely behavioral and any demographic attributes you have, but it doesn't go into other things. So yeah, I'm not sure how Sitecore does. Yeah. Go ahead.
So we've got just the questions are just rolling in. So Carl's wondering, can Google Analytics 4 help you do cluster analysis? For example, define the segment of new subscribers, then ask the machine learning to identify which user behaviors are the best predictors of who will subscribe versus who won't.
Yeah. So great question. Google actually is putting a lot of machine learning into it, right? So what they are going to do is, I heard this today, don't quote me on that. They are going to be releasing that information, like to predict who's going to sign, who's not going to, who's going to churn, etc. And that's why the BigQuery integration also comes into play. If you look at BigQuery, the data is actually in raw level data is there. So if you have a machine learning person who can run these things, you have everything that you need. If not, Google is going to be releasing those things. They will be predicting these things because some third-party companies are trying to do that on top of Google data, but Google has all the power, machine learning, and all the data, so they'll be doing it too. It's coming. It's not there. Meanwhile, if you want to do it, you can put it in BigQuery and do all your analysis there. All right. Before I take another question, this is what I was looking for. I was in the wrong profile. That's why I couldn't see it. And it's like User Explorer. So in Analysis Hub, I have information about every user. And that's coming. You can pass even a user ID. So let's say somebody signs up on your site, they get ID number 1, 2, 3, you get 2, 3, 4, whatever. I've done that offline integration. You can take all that data, bring it in Google, and now you'll have that individual's information here. But once you do that, clicking on this will show you this user's activity on your site. So the events they have done. Look at this. This user who came from Kirkland, US, they have, and I only know ID, but if somebody signs on my site, I can actually pass in that information and I'll know exactly who that person is. When did they start the session? What page views did they? Page view, scroll, etc. You can see a lot of this information about the users. So each individual user, B2B, when you have a very small customer base, this comes in very, very handy, right? I know, hey, somebody came from this company to my site. They downloaded a white paper. They spent 15 minutes looking at my this page that I'm offering these services or this product on. Maybe it's time to pass that to my sales guy who can pick up the phone and call them and drive them to close this deal, something like that. You can do that here. There is each and every user information is available to you. So you can see like which users, what they're doing. Clicking on that user will take you into the details. So this is what I was looking at before, and I was in that different profile, so I couldn't see it, but it's right here. All right, what else?
Okay, the next question is any insights on how e-commerce or any insights on e-commerce tracking and how to best implement? Universal Analytics is more plug and play.
Actually, Universal Analytics is more complex than I think. If that's what you think, it's plug and play, this is much easier. Because this has, and I talked about this events, right? So there are automatic events, there are enhanced measurement events. Then I talked about those. I'm not sure what the event names was called, but there was a category of events, recommended events. Those are recommended events. If you go in the recommended events list, I can go and search on Google right now, but it's easier. It's way, way easier. So if you go in and let's say Google recommended events GA4. In here, you can see all the recommended events like retail and e-commerce. If you go in here, you can see all these events and the parameters that you can pass. So tracking is easier. Like any other event, you can pass these events. So when you're going and you say, all right, person clicked on this button, add payment info, we're going to trigger this event. And these are the parameters that you can pass. What's the coupon, currency, item, payment type, value. So if somebody adds to wish list, currency, item, and value. What is the user adding? What's the currency, etc. Or what's the item and what's the value of that item? So you have all these events and it's pretty straightforward. You go in Google Tag Manager, if you're using Google Tag Manager. If you're using something like Shopify and etc. or WordPress, where you have plugins, those plugins are not current, or they're not going to allow you to do GA4 yet. I haven't seen a plugin yet, but they will be coming up soon. But if you're using Google Tag Manager or directly coding on the site, this is much easier. There is no, you have a data layer, you can pass in and do this stuff here.
Okay,
Does that
well,
answer your
that's it.
question, David? David? All right. Cool. Anything else I can go in? So this is, again, like I said, this is your friend right here, Analysis Hub. Also, one thing, those who are using, well, as you are implementing the solution, you can even do debug view. Debug view gives you real-time view into what's happening on your site and how various events are getting triggered. So you can set either for yourself, for your people in your organization, or even for the entire customer base. You can mark them as debug in your tracking. There is a parameter called debug view is equal to 1 or true, something like that in Google Tag Manager. You set it up, and once you set that up, everything will be tracked here. So you can see what's happening on your site, what user properties are getting activated, what events are getting activated, etc. It works very well with Google Tag Manager as well, so you can see in real time. But there is a bunch in here, Analysis Hub. There is a bunch in audience that you can go create your audience with these definitions. That's your segment creation. One of the things, I think, I'm not sure who asked me this earlier, what you don't like. I won't say, I think it was Dean, right? So yeah. The only thing is there are several different places, like in Universal Analytics, you could go up on top and create your segments. In here, segments pop up from different places, like things pop up from different places. So you have to know like what you're doing and where you are. Maybe they'll change a bunch of this stuff and bring it in admin panel or somewhere else. But it, takes time to get used to this new interface because things are kind of inside the interface. But other than that, I love it. It's the more you play with it, the more you love it. The admin panel is there where you can actually do BigQuery integration. So if I go here and you have BigQuery linking, simply right here, you can link to your BigQuery projects. It'll show you all the projects that you have. So I've got a bunch of projects here, and I love sending the data to BigQuery. And I can pick that project, and then it'll send to BigQuery. Again, I'm doing this in overview of BigQuery, what it is and how to use it in that 25-day challenge. So 25-day challenge is like 5-day for each of the product, GA, GA4, GTM, Data Studio, and BigQuery. And you can even, like from BigQuery, you can send the data over to Data Studio for visualization. Cool. Anything else? I know I flew through it. There is so much that we can spend 3-4 hours on this thing, going line by line. Yeah,
Okay,
so the class, the class is, if you go to academy.optizen.com, this is the class, which is getting started. It doesn't go in depth, but it gets you started. It starts on June 21st, and you have you'll learn about these 4 tools. But then there is also, I go deeper into these programs where I provide, like, working examples. You can come in if you have a problem, you can come in and get help on that problem, etc., which is part of the membership. So you go through this membership and you get all the support. So you get basically access to courses, you get success plan, you get with experts in the industry, mutual mentorship, which means we work with each other, practical advice, learn how to mentor and help others. So you basically are a group that work together. But that's a membership that'll be, I'm going to provide both of those coupons. I only provide coupons after people have gone through these courses. So you have this course. And then if somebody wants to become a digital analyst complete, then there is a program, but that's actually already live. We started last week, this program. So it's a wait list right now.
So
But
we'll
I'll
make
send
sure
you, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and share out these links. Y'all can look for our monthly newsletter. It's going to be coming out on Monday, and we'll make sure to provide a link if y'all want to rewatch this, in addition to these links to the different courses that Anil has to offer.
Cool. Yeah, I'll send you that link. You can use a coupon. Those, if you want to go and sign up, I created coupons for you. So you can either use this one, 25-day, or I created $Fort Worth SEM. So that'll give you a big discount on this one. If you do that, you get a big discount on this one, as well as in the membership, there is a 50% discount. So you can sign up for that.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, I guess this is it for today. So thank y'all again for joining, and reach out if y'all have any more questions, but we appreciate your support tonight. Yeah.
And Carl, you have a question. I think let's connect and I can find out what the answer for that is. Cool.
Okay, sounds great.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.